All right. Welcome, all you creatures of the night. I am Matt Johnson here on the podcast. It records the mini episode this time. It's been a while since we've done one, and I am joined always with my colleague, with my co-host, with the creator of the podcast, Peter Hansen. Peter Hansen, everyone.
Don't call me curator. I'm co-creator. There's a CEO in there.
It's a co-creator. Okay, I'll take it.
We created it together.
We did. But
That's gold, Matt. That's gold.
that's actually how it was incepted, right? That was the story. I am wired on coffee right now. For everybody who's wondering, I'm talking fast.
Not. I think I've had 2 cups of coffee in my life, and I hated it.
Two cups of coffee now. That's crazy.
Not even full. At least like a quarter of each, and I was like, ugh. I hate it.
That's insane to me. I've had more than 2 cups of coffee today.
Yeah.
And you've had
I drink a lot of soda though, and I'm just trying to give it up.
See, I don't drink soda. I don't drink soda at all.
There it is.
Yeah. We're the perfect dichotomy for a horror podcast. Tit and tat, yin and yang. All right, everyone.
Team coffee versus team pop.
Team soda.
Shut up. It's the same thing.
I know.
It's interchangeable where I come from.
I'm just trying to rile them up before we get in. We get into this mini episode where we're going to be going head to head here in a friendly manner, I like to think.
We'll see.
We'll see what happens. This week we're going to be talking about horror movies. No shit. But horror movies, should they be scary? So the underlying effect, when you go to a horror movie, does it need to frighten you? Does it need to be scary? We're both going to take a stance. We're going to try to defend it the best we can. And, let us know what you think. Get on the discussion board. Pete, I'm going to throw it over to you to start it.
Wow. You trying to have like a good rebuttal for me so you could counter all my points?
Yeah.
Is that your plan?
I got a notebook out. Yeah. I was in the debate team in high school.
You got a little pen and paper action going?
Yeah, I do. I'll counter your points. Go ahead.
That's enough friendly banner for now. So, ultimately, I'm going to start off with my answer and be like, no, it doesn't have to be scary, because there are so many movies that I don't find scary, maybe because I've been desensitized over the years, or there's there's different degrees of scariness. We kind of discussed it a little bit probably throughout each episode, but and everything is different to a person, like what's scary to them. So I think like overall it's kind of hard to say that has to be scary, because like I feel like there's not a universal thing that scares everyone. Like you can try and you get pretty close with like probably most mass appeal horror movies, but ultimately there's going to be that person who'll be like, yeah, the movie sucked. Because they expect it to be scary. This is coming from what I think like a mass audience. I think the complaint of horror movies is they just didn't think it was scary, and that like kind of that bothers me, honestly.
Yeah.
And I find a lot of enjoyment from just like, just good special effects for a while, or just like how it's executed, or from just like I'm just having a great time. This movie is so dumb, but it's fucking amazing.
Okay.
And I think it just kind of comes down to my just entertainment, like, yeah, it's a little dark or a little macabre to say that, people are suffering or whatever. I don't want to see that. People could say that. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Don't watch it. But like, it's a movie. It's not like it's really happening.
Okay. Trying to digest all of that as I was taking notes on my pen and paper.
Yeah, it kind of was just like word farts. That was a lot of like just me spitting out different things I've thought about.
So like, are you saying because of that mass appeal, some of them don't come off as scary, or because of that mass appeal, you just try to get as much of an attraction that you can, that it just comes off sort of uncanny, comes off eerie, and not as so much scary?
I think, just the whole there's a movie, and a horror movie, when they promote it, they're gonna like, it's the scariest movie of the year.
Sure.
And that's what people are drawn to for horror movies, most likely. And when they're not scared, they're like, oh, it didn't do what it said it was gonna do. This movie sucks.
They're let down. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, are you saying that's an okay thing, or that's just a function of horror movies?
I think
that will happen.
I think it's a function of horror movies because, like, I think, I'm a culprit of that too. When a horror movie doesn't scare me when I thought it would, if that's kind of like what the goal of the movie was,
mm-hmm.
and it doesn't do that, then yeah, maybe I wouldn't like it. But like, if there's another redeeming quality to it, then maybe I'll give it like a second chance or something.
Okay. And if I can expound upon that, you were saying it's sort of a function of horror to do that. I just want to say, I think the horror movie works less on mass appeal and more on an individual level. And maybe that's why some people go, well, that wasn't the scariest movie ever, but some people will be frightened to death of certain movies. Like, I'm sure there's some movies that still scare me, and Pete, you'd be like, that doesn't do anything. That doesn't make me feel anything. Now, I would posit, to counter you, that doesn't mean horror movies don't have to be scary. I would just say they are scary, but just on a different level. Because I think the fundamental point of horror, if you're going for movies, that's what we do, but for literature, anything, or just stories, there's the fundamental element that it's a psychological disruption. It's supposed to, these characters and these elements are supposed to embody your fears, your threats, the uncanny, your encounter with mortality and damnation, and that scares people, and it'll scare people in different ways. I mean, some movies about damnation, some people won't be frightened of vampires, and that whole idea, but to some that's scary because that fear, that threat, is more imminent to them. So it still has to be scary, but it might not be the same fear for everybody.
It feels like we're
Click.
in agreement, but disagreeing in ideology or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said it, like you ultimately want them scary, and there's different reasons why they could be scary. Mm-hmm. And then I almost used like the same point, but in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's interesting that we're not, because before we started this episode and I found out that you actually weren't in a disagreement with me, and I was like, oh really? Like, you've seen like enough horror movies, like probably just as much as I have.
Mm-hmm.
And especially since we've been watching the same movies every time we do an episode.
Yeah.
And so that definitely came to a shock to me when you disagreed.
Yeah, I think we're pretty close, but maybe it's just like a different understanding of the question. Where like some movies aren't scary to me, and I'll agree to that. But I think they are meant to be scary.
But does that make you dislike them though?
It doesn't necessarily make me dislike them because they're not scary. If I'm going to be scared, like if I go to it for a horror movie to be scared and I'm not, I guess I would generally say it's a dislike because I'm going to be scared. But if it has other elements that hold up to the horror genre, or I could see what it's trying to do in terms of creating like a nightmarish element, hitting on cultural taboos, then I could still enjoy it.
Yeah.
So
I think
I was just going to provide an example, if I may.
I was going to give you an example too.
Oh, you go first then. Yeah.
I was going to say, like, there's actually a movie we watched earlier,
mm-hmm.
and I was like, what about The Burbs? We watched that movie. I believe we both enjoyed it. I think we both, right? Didn't we both, like,
Yeah.
You didn't destroy that movie, did you?
I did not, no.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And I would say that movie is not scary. Maybe there's some elements of creepiness, but, I mean, I just have a hard time seeing that movie being seen as scary. Maybe that's because I am so used to the horror genre.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a good point. That's a good example. Um, I'd like to stretch it that I think more modern horror and from the 80s, especially when like the slasher and the splatter came about, it becomes more like visceral and intense horror. But like before that, it was much more subtle. And I think
Yeah.
there's a major difference between horror and terror, and they can still be in the same genre, considered a horror movie. Like we talked about The Burbs. I mean, it's slapstickish. It's poking fun, I think, at itself. But there's a lot of elements of horror and terror in it and suspense. You don't know what's going on, especially when you're at the Coplex house. I hope that's right.
Yeah, I think you are right. Actually,
The Coplex.
that's going back a ways.
Yeah, I got it still in there. But like, especially even the final scene where Tom Hanks is in the fighting for his life against him in the ambulance. That brings up moments of terror. It can be spotty, but I think it still has to have those elements.
What was your example that you were going to bring up?
Oh, mine was going to be sort of on the opposite end of the spectrum. Kind of what what you tried to bring up, but I was going to say It Follows. Now, It Follows, I love.
I do too.
You love It Follows too. Okay, and would you consider that a horror movie?
Yeah.
Okay. To me, I liked it because I picked up on horror elements. It was nostalgic in a sense to like I felt like an 80s type horror movie, that type of filming. And I like what they did, and they kind of added their own element, and it was suspenseful. But on the whole, I was never really completely terrified. But I saw how it could be scary, what they were trying to build up, but myself wasn't completely scared by it.
Yeah, I think that definitely is because like you as an individual are just not scared from that probably the certain thing because like it was like I guess ultimately it was like what the fear of the unknown I guess
Yeah.
was the main draw of the film.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I would agree. I was definitely there were some moments that got me, but I wasn't like I don't know. Like I would say probably this may be controversial, but more scared of The Conjuring when that came out.
Yeah.
That what I don't know if it was maybe because he found a way to kind of use jump scares in an effective way in the movie and kept an overall very tense fear throughout the whole film.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it was. I don't know. I don't really know how to go into it.
No, that's a good way of putting it. I think if we can just touch it, like Conjuring does that really well. It keeps that tension of the fear throughout. Whereas It Follows, I think, is more about cultivating an atmosphere where you feel everything. You kind of are immersed in that world. Where I didn't feel so much immersed into a world in The Conjuring, but I was constantly on edge.
I would say they actually did a pretty good job with immersing you with at least everything that they were talking about, because they explained, they found a good way to explain it with the Warrens, and then oh, here's another case, and what is the main movie? You know what I mean? They kind of like had a little snippet for the beginning for you.
Sure. Plot wise, I agree. I was thinking more cinematically, like just the way it was shot and filmed. It Follows, I think, doesn't have as many elements where it's like jump scares and stuff, where Conjuring does, but just sort of the eeriness that follows the way it was shot and filmed makes you feel uneasy with It Follows. Whereas there's less scares like that.
Yeah, it was very reminiscent of like Halloween cinematography.
Yeah, and the soundtrack was kind of vaguely similar too.
Yeah.
It was very
I feel
synthesized.
It really felt like a good fusion of Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street tactics.
I agree. Yeah. But it was still scary. Bringing it full circle to the mini episode.
But like, there's definitely people who didn't find it scary though, and I think they used that to dislike it. So that's where the main question comes from. Is this like, people who know me, but like they're like, oh, Pete, I don't know how you like horror films. Like, they're stupid, and like, how do you either they say that like they don't find them scary or they don't like being scared or whatever. If you don't like being scared, that's fine. Like oh, I want to bring you in and show you a horror film. Like I usually like show them like a funny one or something. Like, they're like, here, it's not that scary. It's actually pretty ridiculous and very entertaining.
Yeah, kind of wean them into it.
Yeah.
Before you get all hard. Yeah.
How about Gremlins? That's not very scary.
No.
And like I would say, I mean, people I think have argued with me in the past that it's not a horror film, but like I think there's enough elements in there for it. I don't know. It's Dante, so it might be pushing it a little bit.
That'd be a good one to dissect. I'd have to watch Gremlins again to really look into that.
Do a double Gremlins 2 right by it, a new batch.
Speaking of that, Pete, hang on. Hang with me, everybody. I recommended a movie. I think Joe Dante did it. Nope, I take it back. Never mind. That was a pointless segue. There's a movie called They're Watching, 2016. I almost did that one instead of Most Likely to Die.
Most Likely to Die, yeah.
Oh,
I thought the other one you said was... Nope. I lost it.
But yeah, I guess to wrap it up, to conclude the mini episode here, just for clarification's sake, I'm thinking every horror movie made, written, directed, acted, produced, performed, it has to be scary. The intent has to be to unnerve people. And what I'm getting from you, I think, you're saying they don't have to be scary, but are you saying they don't have to be scary because people aren't finding them scary? Or that you think they just don't have to be scary?
That's a really good question. I think they... Ultimately, yeah, there are going to be people who don't find them scary, but I think they don't have to be. And I think I've seen...
So they're written with the intent that they're not going to be scary.
See, I don't know how I'm going to prove that.
But I'm just saying, is that what you're positing with your argument?
I think they might have the intent. They probably most likely have the intent. 90% probably of the time they have the intent to be scary. But there's the time where a lot of cocaine was invested in Hollywood.
Yeah,
do I think
Maximum Overdrive, Stephen King.
I was just gonna fucking bring that up, but then I noticed how much time we've been talking about it, and it's a mini episode.
We're dragging on.
Great movie, by the way. Not scary.
No.
But amazing.
But a freaking amazing movie if you get a chance. Stephen King, only movie he directed.
Great trailer. You just see his cocaine eyes.
Well, for the time, we ran a little long. I hope you enjoyed our little debate. Kind of agreed or compromised to an extent.
It was like agree to disagree, kind of, because like we're bringing up like similar arguments, but using them to our own
benefit. Yeah.
yeah.
No, it's close. We started like micromanage the debate and try to get like very like a fine tooth comb. But
I think I would say that I would agree that their intent is most likely to scare, but I think it's probably where the execution fails.
Okay.
And then ultimately people don't find them funny, but I don't think that discredits it. I think that's where I come from, to where it doesn't have to be this scary, even though I know you tried to be and failed.
It doesn't discredit it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless it's like actually just you just didn't get any entertainment out of it. It depends obviously on the person.
Yeah, I can get behind that. I can. I was coming from the angle that every movie that's meant to be in the horror genre, it's written with the intent to be scary. I mean, it can't not be. I mean, and scary can take on different ways from different subgenres to terror to suspense, but that's the initial process of making a horror movie. But I can buy your argument. Not saying it's bad, but I believe in that one. I can get behind that.
Where like the execution is where.
But you can still find entertainment value from it. It's written with the intent to be scary. It fell through, but you can still enjoy it. It has credit.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
I buy it. I can get that. With that being said, Pete wins.
It's a tie.
Let us know what you think on the forums and the discussion boards. If you have anything to add, we ran a little long. We'd like to talk longer, but you can talk longer online with us. That's the greatness of the web. So get back at us. Let us know if you want to hear another mini episode that we can do. Check out our full-length episodes. And we'll hope to be back to you next week with a new podcast on It Records. Until next time, I'm Matt Johnson, and I'll remain in the shadows.
I'm Peter Hansen, and I'll be in the light.